Hey friends, this is Colleen Sweeney. Many of you know I'm a full-time speaker and consultant in healthcare, and ordinarily I'd be on a stage somewhere. I was supposed to be somewhere right now speaking to healthcare workers. What I do is I am paid to deliver really tough messages to healthcare audiences with all the love and grace that I can. And for the most part, they're receptive. Not everyone will like it. Well, here we go. I'm going to start out by telling you not everyone's going to like this message because I am incredibly passionate about this. For those of you who know me personally, you will not see me comment on things that are political or usually controversial, but this I feel compelled to do, and maybe in a little bit you'll understand why. So today I will talk about perspective, and I'll talk about love and grace and lessons learned in my very own house as early as 24 hours ago. And then at the end, I'm going to take you to church. So for those of you who had canceled church and maybe haven't watched it online or didn't have that opportunity, here you go. Listen up till the end. Now, I told you that some of you won't like it, and if you don't, you can always push that angry emoticon. That's just fine with me. When you're a speaker, you get pretty used to that kind of stuff. Or else, just hold off and watch this message in 3 days, because things are changing so rapidly that what you think now will change in just a matter of days. So here we go. I had made a decision to self-quarantine about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. I turned down any invitation for any boat rides, potlucks, especially bad idea, potlucks, any gathering of any amount of people. And that was a decision that I made because of my perspective, because I come from a healthcare background, and because I understand the law of exponentiality. And I think I just made that word up, but that I understand how things multiply when it comes to disease. Not that any of us fully understand this, but there's basic things that we know about infectious disease, and I made a decision for myself and for my family. However, I'm going to tell you about a spirited discussion that we had in our household, and maybe you're no different than us and have had some similar spirited discussions. In a pandemic, we have to look at every family, at the big picture in family units. And so I told you that I was self-quarantined, but my husband had made a decision, not made a decision, he just continued to play tennis every day for 3 to 4 hours with this group of guys that he absolutely loves, and he loves to play tennis. And I thought, well, I'm just going to give it a little while because he's going to connect the dots very soon, and he is going to see that this decision that he's made to play tennis is a decision that affects me. It's just like I have decided to play tennis every time he plays tennis. And so I waited and I waited. And as of yesterday, he comes in after several hours, and I could tell he still hadn't connected the dots. So we had a discussion, and I said, do you realize that every time you go out there, you handle a ball that's handled by a lot of guys on your team, and that they rotate, and a lot of people have their hand on the same balls. I said that you've made a decision about me, and ultimately about my father, and ultimately about your parents. And he said, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And I said, well, it's true. And I have to tell you that it's starting to upset me as time goes along that you don't see it this way. And then he said something to me that was like a light bulb moment. And he said, Colleen, you have to understand that you have a perspective based on your education, based on the work you've done with communicable disease. You know, that's just working in the hospital and understanding how isolation and disease works. And he said, that's what you bring to the decision that you've made. He said, I don't have that. And I never thought I was putting you at risk. And he said, I haven't connected the dots. And we had a wonderful discussion. And then just to tell you how it wrapped up, in less than 6 hours, he didn't have to make a decision. They put a padlock on the tennis courts and that was done. So someone made a decision for him. But it reminded me of something very interesting, and it's about perspective. When I met him 20 years ago, my amazing husband, he would lock everything up. He would lock everything in a hotel safe, and I'm like, what are you doing? He would lock up our cars in the garage, lock them inside the locked garage. Our house is, I'll just tell you, very, very secure. He is a locker-upper. And I would say to him, what is with the locking up? And he said, oh, this was 20 years ago. He said, oh, here's why I lock everything up. When I was 10 years old, I worked all winter long shoveling driveways in Wisconsin so that I could save all my money for a bicycle. And I finally got this shiny new bicycle, and I take it out one time and it was stolen. And he said, that's why I lock everything up. And I'm like, really? I've never given that thought. You know why? Because I've never had anything stolen from me, nothing. So I leave everything open. I would until I met him. Leave everything open. Don't worry about anything. Walk away from my purse. Any of those things, because I trust everyone. He does not, based on his experience and based on his perspective. Well, after a lot of years of marriage and being together with him for many years, I should say, I've changed my perspective on that. And now I'm a locker-upper too. And it kind of just made me realize that everyone is going to come at this pandemic with a different perspective. And that we have to muster up all the love and grace that we have to realize that not everyone's going to see it the way that we do. And I think it's going to require lots and lots of empathy, which is really what I talk about when I speak to audiences, lots and lots of empathy on our part to realize other people's perspectives. So let me tell you a story about one of my children. I decided yesterday to call each of them and just check in, as we all should, on people during this time that's kind of crazy. And I called one son, and I kind of could have guessed, knowing that I know my child pretty well, who's now 30, that how he would have reacted. And I said, how's it going? And he said, I'm fine. And I said, has anything changed for you? And he said, no, I'm still working and I still eat all of my meals out. I said, oh, that's very interesting. This was just yesterday. So I knew I didn't have to go too deep in the woods or have an argument with him or try to persuade him, because that decision's going to be made for him pretty quick and he won't be eating all his meals out. So I gently said, honey, you might think about going to the store and getting some things, maybe just for the next week or two, because I think that those places that you go to eat may be soon shutting down for good reason. And you'll want to be prepared. Now, as of midnight, one of those places that he goes often did shut down. So I knew that I didn't have to argue with him. But at the end of the conversation, he said something so fascinating to me. He said, Mom, have you thought about Dad in the last couple weeks? And I said, as a matter of fact, I have. In fact, I've been praying for Dad every single day, sometimes even a couple times a day. Why? And he said, I'm really, really worried about him because he's an ER doctor. Now, here's what you have to know. His dad and my ex-husband, the father of my children, is far, far away from us, okay? Working in a mid-size emergency room where I know as an emergency room physician, he's come up against this. I know he has. And then we are down here in Tampa. And he said, I'm just really worried. And I said, wow, that's kind of amazing to me. You're really worried about your father. I mean, to the point where he got emotional. And I said, but you continue to eat all of your meals out and aren't doing anything different. And he said, that's right. And I said, I want you to think about this. Somewhere here in Tampa, somewhere, I can put my life on it, there are children or families that are praying for their mother and father who are physicians, who are nurses, who are respiratory therapists, who are anything in the medical profession, whether you're in environmental services or dietary, and someone is praying for them right here in Tampa, and you continue with life as usual, because for now you have that option. And he said, I never thought about that. He said, I didn't connect those dots. And so I can just bet that today maybe he's thinking a little bit differently about that. And then my father, he called me yesterday and he said, Colleen, this place that I used to love, he's in an independent living center that is amazing. It is like the most awesome place with white tablecloths, and they treat them like gold, these people, as they should be treated. But he loves it. We love it. He said, it's become like a prison. He said, now I'm only allowed to have one visitor a day, and you have to sign in at the front desk and give them your address and your contact information. And immediately, without skipping a beat, I said, Dad, that's amazing. And he said, what are you talking about? I thought you were going to be mad. And I said, Dad, that place is every bit as awesome as I thought it was going to be, because that means they care about you and they understand the way the disease process works. They get it, and they love you every bit as much as I love you. Just go with it, I promise you. And he said, really? I better tell my friends at breakfast that. So today he calls me. Yesterday he was happy at the end of our conversation. Today he calls and he says, Colleen, you won't believe this. Well, of course I did believe it, because I could have predicted it. He said, they're shutting down our dining room. And I said, I could have guessed that, Dad. And he said, isn't that terrible? And I said, no, it's wonderful. And he said, what do you mean it's wonderful? And I said, the part they didn't tell them is that they have a whole plan in place. I'm sure, without ever talking to them, I know they have a plan in place. And I said, Dad, what they're going to do is this. They're probably going to give you a limited menu. It might not be like the big fancy menu that you order on every day in your beautiful independent living center. But you're going to have a menu. You're going to check your menu items, and then someone is going to safely deliver those meals to your room. And I said, it's like an apartment. And I said, that's amazing. That's what they need to do. And he said, you really think that? And I said, I absolutely do. And today I am going to give him some ideas about how he can take that meal tray, how he can go out onto his little porch for two, and how he might be able to socialize with limited, because the cafeteria or the dining room is now closed. But it's all in the messaging and the way that we respond. All of these things are good. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're late, but that's okay. So I want to talk about the toilet paper. Now, anyone who's heard me speak professionally knows that one of the things that I talk about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that pyramid, of which Maslow never put it on a pyramid, but we did, with those necessities at the very bottom. So one of the things that I see mostly on social media are memes about toilet paper, and why is everyone buying toilet paper, and what is this hysteria? And I'm going to give you my opinion why I think that is, and how we can have just a little bit more understanding or perspective. And it is this. The thing at the bottom of that pyramid are the things that we know that we can't live without. And they're the very basic human things. Well, now we have to start to think about thinking as ourselves, as people under a pandemic, on that same pyramid of needs, and we have needs. Now, because there's so much unknown, people don't really know what it is they're going to need, but they know they need the basics. That's why they've cleared the shelves. That's why they've bought toilet paper, because that's pretty basic. Now, I have not bought any toilet paper, and I've shopped for just 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, I shopped, and I'm going to see how clever I can get, because in many homes, and certainly not all, we have plenty of food to get us through. Not everyone does, and I understand that. And so I have not gone out and shopped. I have not hoarded toilet paper, but I understand why people have, because it's a basic need and it is something that they absolutely know that when everything else may be stripped away, such as entertainment, such as restaurants and other venues, which we're seeing just fade away, they still know they have to go to the bathroom. And really, no one wants to be without toilet paper. The funny thing is, I hardly know a nurse who's gone out and bought toilet paper, because in the hospital, they don't use toilet paper on a patient. What they use is a washcloth and a towel. So every clinician knows we always have that. So that is why I think that people have hoarded toilet paper. They don't know what to do, and they have this sense of control when they have everything they need for the basics. And I totally get that. And there might come a time where I have to borrow some of their toilet paper, but there you go. The last thing that I want to talk about, or the second to last thing that I want to talk about, is healthcare workers. And that's what compelled me to do this video. Now, many of them are no longer on social media because I believe that it was too painful for them to watch, because there are people out there saying and doing some really hurtful things that fly in the face of people who are out there risking their lives. No two Facebook feeds are alike. And what happens is this: in mine, it's mostly people who work in the sciences, and it's mostly people who are care providers, whether they're doctors, nurses, anyone who works in a hospital. They're most of the things that I see on posts. And so I have a little peek into their world. Plus, it used to be my world. The other thing is, I get to hear nurses talk among themselves on social media. And the conversations that they are having are absolutely saddening and frightful. And that's one of the reasons I decided to self-isolate, because these are the people that I love and that I get, who I know are going to give it all out there. So I'm going to tell you just of two instances. One is a nurse who about a week ago was unknowingly exposed to a patient who then 2 days later turned out to be positive for the coronavirus. She was told that she had to self-quarantine, but she's single and has 3 kids at home. So she's unable to be quarantined. So what she does is this: out of her own pocket as a single parent, she goes and she rents a hotel room for 14 days to self-quarantine. And then she asks for the family to step in to watch her 3 children. No one wants to watch her children. Why? Because she has been exposed to the virus. Whether she has it or not is not yet clear, but at least they know that she's been exposed. That's why she's in the hotel room, and no one wants to watch her children. That's real. The other thing is this: a gentleman that I know that is a nurse that is now sleeping in his car. Why? Because he has a family and he doesn't want to put them at risk. So he's working better than 12-hour shifts and then sleeping in his vehicle at night and then coming back and work a little more. And then there's people out there who say, I don't want to do things differently. And so one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is to say that everyone's got a perspective, and some of our perspectives are that we don't want to stay home. I actually am loving it and have paint on my arm because we just painted our garage, which has been on our to-do list for a long time. So I actually am loving this time period. And even though I'm not employed currently, I can tell you that we're getting lots and lots of things done. And I'm just loving having exchanges with my neighbors out in the neighborhood, more than 6 feet away. And it has been wonderful for me. It's not going to be wonderful for everyone. Small businesses are going to fail. But I can tell you that what's at risk is the lives of our healthcare professionals who are risking it every day. And we have to do everything in our power to become significant and to stay home, to only go out when we absolutely have to. And I'm not pretending that that's easy. For most people, it's going to be hard. And you're going to say, well, what if I have kids and I want to get together and have a play date to help pass? No, don't. Think about someone, a nurse, sleeping in his car. And then maybe we'll think a little bit differently and look at it from someone else's perspective. And I'm not foolish enough to think that everyone's going to see it this way. So on my feed, and this is the last thing that I will say, is that there's a lot of people and people who have actually accused me of not having faith and of not believing that God's got this. And I can tell you that that is nothing. It couldn't be further from the truth. You self-quarantine because you don't think God has this. No, I self-quarantined because I have people on the front lines in mind. I have my father in mind. That's why I self-quarantined, because I believe that I'm significant enough to carry something, and so are you. So to end, I want to tell you about someone. Some of you know him, and his name was Noah. Noah, now many years ago, was told that something horrible was going to come his way. And so God told him, I'm going to protect you from this, but there's something crazy that you've got to do. You've got to build this crazy size ark and take your family on it along with all these animals. That's crazy. And I would venture to guess that people who knew his 3 children, someone said to Ham, hey Ham, your dad is nuts. Why is he building this ark? But you know what? Noah continued to do it. And you know how the story ends. And I believe that God is faithful. And I believe that God knows exactly how this will end. And we're going to get through it. All of us will get through it. But I honestly believe that we have given warning from other countries, warning from other healthcare professionals who are already been through this, or are at some of them on the tail end of this, who have done it better or worse than we have. And the message is this: stay home. You don't have to build an ark. You only have to stay home. I want you to know that I deliver this message in love, and that I wish the very best for every one of you. For those who have called me and asked me about personal things, go ahead, ask me questions. I'll answer as best you can, or refer you to someone who can answer them for you. You take care. God bless.